wanted to share a vision I had yesterday. Um, that would be August the 11th, 2020. That same day in the afternoon, I had a brief discussion with Brother Emmanuel and my father, who had a meeting together previously. So it wasn't planned, but during that time, Brother Emmanuel had mentioned that I begin to regularly practice quieting my mind in a particular way, so as to allow the Holy Spirit to commune with my own spirit and with my heart, and just to generally practice quieting the inner man from all the active and racing thoughts. And so later that evening, I did just that, as was urged by the Lord for me to do so. As after that period, there were still many racing thoughts in my head, and I did in fact find it quite challenging. And I realized, sort of to my surprise, how rare it was for me to do something like that, to quiet myself. And it was during that time where there was finally a sense of inner tranquility. This statement began to ring within my own heart and mind, which was, "Who are you?" It wasn't in any way a sort of existential question, but more in the sense of how my life and my own destiny related to God's purpose. So something greater really than my own life, but more of how my own life related to God's purpose. And at that point, I did begin to see the vision. And in this vision, I found myself traveling swiftly through these very large, long, tall halls. And on either side of these halls were rows of armored angels. I remember in the vision, everything was very, very not stretched to where it was abnormal looking, but very stretched in the sense that everything was very tall and large, and I felt very, 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 very small and insignificant as I traveled almost at a flying speed through these halls. And after some time, I finally came into a large, wide room, which was, I think, in this case, the throne room. And although I had this very vast perception in my vision, I was not even able to fully see the throne itself, but actually found myself upon the wide, large stairway of the throne, and still feeling very, very small and meek, probably more so at this point. I basically had this, I could feel this communication from my own spirit to the Lord. Interestingly, and I only say this because I guess I haven't had many spiritual experiences of this kind, but it wasn't anything particularly emotional, but something that was, I guess, spirit to spirit in a sense. So there were these desires that I can't even verbalize or express because I don't even know particularly what they were, but they were still communicated to the Father. And it was at that point that I saw in the vision that something was placed on my head, and I very vividly saw a golden helmet with two white wings on either side of the helmet. The wings were kind of going back, as if not completely spread out, but still spread backwards towards my back. That was what was placed on my head. And as it was placed on my head, I heard three distinct words that were supposed to, that the helmet was supposed to resemble. And the three words were, in this order: simplicity, wisdom, and knowledge. That's what I heard as it was placed on my head. And it was at that moment that the scene of the vision changed, and I found myself still with the helmet on. I found myself in a foresty area. It was nighttime, and it was slightly raining. I don't know if those details matter, but I thought it was very interesting that I was in this area. It's not an area I've ever been before. Just something that the vision revealed. And it was at that point that, with the helmet still on my head, I saw it begin to actually dissolve into my head until the helmet itself was no longer visible because it had dissolved into my mind or my head. And it was at that point that the vision ended. So I was very encouraged by the vision and continued to keep it in prayer. And this morning, actually, after another time of quietness, I had a sort of revelation, a further revelation of the vision, or some of the meaning of the vision. And interestingly, this revelation came not from my own initiative of thinking it over or pondering on it, but instead it was revealed during this time of quietness and not allowing anything else to pass through my mind except what the Lord passed through it. Still something I'm exercising. But the revelation was concerning the meaning of those three words that were associated with the helmet that I was given. Those three words being simplicity, wisdom, and knowledge. And the revelation I was given was that each one had its own particular relation to truth. And so, to put it simply, simplicity had to do with knowing the truth, becoming aware of its reality, while wisdom had to do with being, manifesting, or practicing the truth. While the last one, knowledge, interestingly, had more to do with the illustration, display, or exuding of that truth. And so, from what I gleaned from this revelation was that I suppose simplicity had more, like I had mentioned, to do with the requirement for becoming aware of. When I say this truth, I don't even refer to something particularly, just truth in general. I know that Jesus himself is the way, the truth, and the life. So I think this may have to do with one's relationship to the essence of this truth. And then wisdom, of course, we have to know. Had a bit of interruption there, sorry. I think I was going over wisdom again. So, as we know, that has to do more with the practice of that truth as a way of life. And then here with knowledge, and this one I found the most interesting, because previous to this revelation, after thinking over it for a small time, I assumed it to be just basically the content of truth. But instead, it had more to do with the sharing or display of this truth to others. So it has a very interesting relation to wisdom, which is in itself sort of a display or activation of this truth. But in this context of knowledge, it had more to do with serving as an example of this truth to others. So that's really all I have to share concerning this vision and my understanding of it. So I found it a real blessing, and I wanted to share it with Brother Emmanuel as soon as I could. So bless the Lord.